Joining me is Greenland's Minister for Business, Energy and Mineral Resources, Naaja Nathanielsen. Her government is now entering talks with the US and Denmark over the future of her country. President Donald Trump is still seeking an unprecedented foothold in the Arctic island, despite climbing down on his previous threats to forcibly seize or acquire the territory. Minister, thank you so much for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you for having me.
So can I first ask you to reflect on the dramatic recent few days when the future of Greenland was really in the balance? After all of this, can Greenlanders still consider Trump's America to be their ally and friend?
If I reflect back on the last 14 days and so, I think it was, we saw an increased rhetoric regarding Greenland in terms of the American interest. But mind you, the US have had an interest in Greenland for the past many years, actually more than 100 of years. So we are quite used to this interest from the US, and we do realize that we are part of their national security interest sphere. So that part is not new to us. Of course, there has been an increased rhetoric about buying or acquiring Greenland or even taking us by force. We are not a territory. We are a country, equal country within the Kingdom of Denmark. And we are a people in our own right, acknowledged by law, and therefore, of course, it would be a great and grave violation of international law if anything was to happen without our consent.
Trump has obviously climbed down on his most threatening rhetoric, but you are now entering talks with his administration as well as with Denmark on a future kind of deal. Trump says that a framework deal does exist. Are you aware of that framework and what does it entail?
There is no deal yet. What we have is an agreement to venture into a dialogue between, it's going to be, I think, maybe a number of different dialogues. I think there will be a NATO-led dialogue that has to do with maybe an increased presence from NATO in the high north. That could be Greenland. We would welcome that. Then there would be these trilateral dialogues between the US on one side and the Kingdom of Denmark, consistent in this part of Greenland and Denmark on the other side. And we still have to gain clarity about what is the American interests concretely, because we really haven't heard anything yet. And then there might be something regarding a closer business tie, and that would be a whole other dialogue as well.
You mentioned that you are a country, you are a people, and your Prime Minister has said that Greenland's sovereignty and integrity of its borders cannot be violated. It's non-negotiable. Yet Trump is saying in public that he wants full access to your country. Do you think that a compromise is possible here?
I think if you look at the 1951 agreement already in place, the US has wide access to Greenland, and we have no problems with this. We also do not have any problems with some sort of update of that agreement, but we would of course need to hear more in detail what that would entail and how that would be possible with our red lines, which is, as you mentioned, that we want the territory to be, the realm to be intact and our sovereignty to be intact.
You are, however, Minister for Mineral Resources, and we know that Greenland is a hotbed of critical raw materials. Would that be up for negotiation, sort of increased American access to those resources, more mining contracts as part of the commercial deal that you referenced?
Well, I do not want to combine any form of defense agreement with access to our minerals. We need to keep these things in their separate baskets, if you will. And we are very much open to investments and collaborations with the US. We already have a memorandum of understanding that is from 2019 under Trump 1 that we have been seeking to update. But we cannot, I think, start to put it all together in the same basket because it's different things. We cannot give another country full access to our minerals. This is a rule-based country, so we, of course, you need to follow the local rules and regulations in order to gain access. But we have definitely every interest in deepening our relationship and figuring out how can we, to our mutual benefit, develop our mineral sector.
And several different investors, countries are interested, of course, in developing Greenland's mineral sector, including some companies with Chinese links. Do you understand that Trump has some concerns around that? And would you be willing to limit the extent to which the West's adversaries, such as China, can invest in your mineral sector?
Currently, as I'm aware, we have 2 Chinese companies invested in a mineral sector. Both of these licenses are inactive, and both are being fought in court, actually, against the government of Greenland. So I don't see a lot of Chinese interest into our mineral sector. We don't see a lot of Chinese interference in our waters, as also mentioned. I think we have shown quite clearly throughout the years that where we stand in terms of allyships and partnerships, and we have clearly chosen the Western world as our partners, the European Union, the US, Canada, UK, and I think we have both in regulation and in policy shown where we stand.
Minister, the past few days have been quite frightening for some Greenlanders, especially when Trump initially was using rhetoric such as the possibility of using force to seize the territory. You mentioned that there could potentially be dialogue around increased NATO presence. But do you think today that Europe and Western allies other than the US would be ready and able to defend Greenland if it was needed?
I think there's more than one answer to that question, really. I think that NATO has proven itself to be a good alliance. The countries, the member states do not always agree on everything, but it has, I think, shown and given prosperity and peace to a wider part of the world than just the NATO member states. So I think it's a good alliance. Do I believe that everything will be unchanged in the future? If you look at the world historically, no, things have changed throughout the years, and allies have shifted, and of course this will also happen to us sometime in the future. I think that right now is a lot of wishful thinking in Europe, pining towards the things that were, but we are in a changing world order, and also, like the Canadian Prime Minister said, the rupture has happened. So I think we all need to find our footing in these new alliances and figure out how do we see ourselves going forward, what kind of values do we want to guide our future policies. And it's not going to be free. It's going to cost difficult discussions amongst allies, amongst friends, and also economically in the country. So I think a lot of things are up in the air at this moment, not only in Greenland, but also in Europe and in the States. And we have to see where everything lands.
You mentioned just very briefly that new world order, that rupture that Prime Minister Carney of Canada referred to. How fearful are you that Greenland could be particularly vulnerable, though, because we know of its strategic position in the Arctic, we know of its mineral wealth, and what does Greenland need to be able to defend itself in this new world order where its might overwrite?
Well, Greenland will never be able to defend ourselves military on our own. That has never been our plan. And we have always been vulnerable towards outside interest from bigger countries. We have been a colony in the past. We have been used to an intense look upon our resources from the outside world. And I think has done a great job trying to build a community based on international law and transparency and democracy. But mind you, if Greenland is at stake in some form or other in the future, so is the entire Western world. That would only be part of it. That would mean that rupture was complete and that you could no longer rely on international law to be upheld. So that would change the situation not only in Greenland, but for everybody that is affected and align ourselves with our values.
Finally, what do you think these past weeks, months have done to the increasing calls for more self-determination and eventually even independence for Greenland? Do you think that has received a little bit of a setback and that you realize that your deep reliance and connection with Denmark and with Europe? Or do you think there's still a case to be made about further self-determination for Greenland?
Well, I think any country are working towards more self-determination. Wouldn't your country? I think it's very natural. And for us, this has never been a sprint. It has always been a marathon. And we are working towards more self-determination within the Kingdom of Denmark. And that is where the people's appetite is currently and has been for many years. So there has never been this imminent complete sovereignty right around the corner. I think that has been something that has maybe been painted by outside media more than the actual discussions within Greenland. So we are working towards more self-determination in every aspect. If you look at the Greenlandic community and country, we have really built strong institutions in the last 30, 40 years or so, and really shown that we gradually take more and more responsibility for our own community, and always with an underlying understanding that we are so few, 57,000 people currently, that we will never be able to gain fully independence and be able to defend our country military. That has never been a goal. It has always been a goal to gain more self-determination. And I think it's a very human want, and I think that will, of course, stay. I also think that the idea of freedom is a baseline for us. The idea that we can determine our own fate is very strong. And these past 2 weeks, I think, has really both caused concern, of course, but also I detect an anger beginning to come forward, that people feel that what is happening now is unjust, and they find it difficult to wrap their head around that an ally would treat us like that.
Minister, many thanks for joining us on Euronews. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Have a nice day.